Locking out the world. The ruling shogun began to see foreigners as a threat to his control. It was feared that if the daimyo got Western weapons, they may challenge his authority. So in 1614, he ordered all foreigners out of Japan. The next step was to pass what were known as exclusion laws. These laws stated that all foreigners must leave and no new ones may enter. No Japanese could leave. No ships large enough to make long voyages could be built or kept. Japanese who had left earlier could not return to Japan, and all foreign books were banned. In addition, a curfew was imposed on the Japanese citizens, and they required special documents to travel within the nation. Exceptions to the law were that a small number of Dutch traders were allowed on a small island off the coast. This was because the shogun felt that the Dutch didn't care about religion and were more focused on trade, and therefore wouldn't try to convert his people to Christianity. Under the exclusion law, the Japanese did not learn about the outside world. This was the shogun's goal. He believed that the law was essential not only to secure his power, but also to protect Japanese culture. The Japanese valued a society that embodied peace, safety, security, harmony, and respect. They enjoyed that everyone had his or her place. However, such a society came at a cost of rigid rules. No one could change their social class, and there was little personal freedom or individuality. Still, isolation did have some benefits. Long periods of peace and stability usually equates to more wealth for a country. In Japan, farmers were able to increase production by planting 2 crops per year. New and improved roads increased trade, and gold and silver coins were introduced as currency. The peace of isolation was also good for art and culture. Many things associated with Japanese culture today were developed during this time. This includes kabuki, a type of theater, sumo wrestling, which originated as a religious performance, bunraku, puppet theater, the art of wood block printing, and the martial art of kendo. However, the feudal society on which the shogun's power was built was becoming outdated. Merchants were gaining wealth as more people needed their services of storing and exchanging rice. The peasants were tired of paying high taxes. The daimyo were nearly bankrupt due to road construction in their land, and there was little work for the samurai during a peaceful time. The people began realizing that the shogun was holding on to power they believed rightly belonged to the emperor. To make matters worse, in the 17 and 1800s, a series of natural disasters created famine and death. About 1/3 of Japan's population died of starvation. Rice became scarce as there was no one to farm it, which increased prices and resulted in riots in the cities. Many countries wanted to trade with Japan, including Russia, England, and the US. Japan responded with a renewed expulsion order. It stated, "Whenever a foreign ship is sighted approaching at any point on our coast, all persons on land should fire on it and drive it off." Commodore Perry of the United States arrived to Japan in 1853 with 2 steamships, 2 sailing vessels, 977 men, and 66 guns larger than the Japanese had ever seen before. He presented a letter from U.S. President Fillmore that we'll examine later in class. It asked for trade, protection for shipwrecked American sailors, and the right to buy coal for their ships. Perry returned a year later in 1854, and he, along with a representative of the shogun, signed the Treaty of Kanagawa. It opened 2 Japanese ports to American ships, established American consulate in Japan, and accepted the earlier demands regarding shipwrecked sailors and coal. By 1858, similar treaties were signed with England, France, the Netherlands, and Russia. These became known as the unequal treaties by many of the Japanese, who felt they had lost control over their trade. These unequal treaties were used as proof that the shogun was weak. Riots continued to erupt in the streets, this time over the role of the shogun. Daimyo who were opposed to the shogun were put under arrest, and samurai were exiled or executed. The shogun resigned in 1868, but petitioned the emperor to take over power. The country was divided over who should rule. A new era in Japanese history was just beginning.